46,000 meth labs forced pseudoephedrine behind the counter. 179 cardiac events, 31 of them fatal, put loperamide on the radar of the FDA. A single TikTok challenge spiked teen diphenhydramine overdoses by 48%. These are just 3 of 10 survival medications that could require a pharmacist's gate or a full prescription before 2026. And the pattern connecting all of them is something most preppers have not recognized yet. Pseudoephedrine stands as the original test case for how quickly a survival staple can be swept behind the counter. In 2005, the Combat Methamphetamine Epidemic Act forced retailers to lock up every box, check ID, and log each sale. At the time, law enforcement had uncovered 46,000 meth labs using pseudoephedrine as a key ingredient. The federal crackdown did not just set daily and monthly purchase limits, and it created a permanent gate between consumers and a medication many preppers count on for congestion, sinus infections, and respiratory emergencies. Oregon took it even further in 2022, making pseudoephedrine prescription only, while states like Mississippi tightened limits and required electronic tracking through the National Precursor Log Exchange. The DEA's 2022 proposal to eliminate all threshold exemptions signals that even tighter controls are possible nationwide, putting bulk stockpiling out of reach for anyone without a prescription. Loperamide, better known as Imodium, followed a different path to regulatory scrutiny. Originally valued for controlling diarrhea, an essential in any emergency kit, it landed on the FDA's radar after a spike in high-dose misuse. Between 2015 and 2022, poison centers reported 179 cases of serious heart rhythm disturbances tied to loperamide, including 31 deaths. The FDA responded in 2018 by urging manufacturers to limit package sizes and switch to single-dose blister packs, making it harder to buy in bulk. Large chains now keep big packs behind the pharmacy counter, and states like Illinois and Texas require an ID check for purchases of more than 8 capsules. The DEA, while not classifying loperamide as a controlled substance, has labeled it a drug of concern because of its use in opioid withdrawal self-treatment. For preppers, these changes mean that even basic anti-diarrheal stockpiles now face real-world obstacles that can appear suddenly, driven by data, policy, or a single spike in misuse. Diphenhydramine, widely known by its brand name Benadryl, became a cautionary tale almost overnight. In 2020, a viral social media challenge pushed teenagers to swallow dangerous amounts for a hallucinogenic high. Emergency rooms across the country saw a 48% spike in intentional diphenhydramine exposures among adolescents. Hospital data from 2022 recorded around 4,200 emergency visits linked to these overdoses, with severe cases showing anticholinergic toxicity, including hallucinations, seizures, and in some instances, fatal heart rhythms. The FDA responded by ordering a clear warning on every package: do not exceed 300 milligrams per day. Manufacturers added high-visibility misuse alerts and child-resistant packaging, but these changes did little to slow the online trend. State lawmakers drafted bills to cap sales and require age checks for buyers under 16, but none have passed into law yet. For preppers, diphenhydramine's role as a first-line antihistamine, sleep aid, and anti-itch remedy makes it a staple, yet its future on open shelves is far from certain. N-acetylcysteine, known as NAC, faces a different kind of threat. Used by survivalists for its role in liver protection and as a respiratory supplement, N-acetylcysteine found itself caught between supplement and drug status after the FDA's 2021 draft guidance. The agency declared that N-acetylcysteine, originally approved as a prescription antidote for acetaminophen overdose, could not legally be sold as a dietary supplement. Court challenges failed to overturn this stance. In the wake of warning letters and legal battles, most retailers pulled N-acetylcysteine from their supplement aisles, moving it behind the pharmacy counter or dropping it altogether. By 2026, N-acetylcysteine is available in pharmacies only with a pharmacist's consultation in a dozen states, and major online marketplaces have suspended sales until the FDA finalizes its rule. The supplement industry continues to lobby for unrestricted access, arguing that N-acetylcysteine's benefits for respiratory health and preparedness outweigh any regulatory gray area. But as the FDA's final guidance looms, the future of N-acetylcysteine as a survival staple hangs on a legal technicality, not a new law or safety scare. Activated charcoal sits in a unique spot on pharmacy shelves. It is a staple for preppers, valued for its ability to absorb toxins in emergencies, whether it is accidental poisoning or contaminated water. Poison control experts have tracked a rise in accidental ingestions among young children, especially with bulk powder containers left accessible at home. National Poison Data System records from 2020 to 2022 show that about 10% of charcoal-related calls involved children under 5. In response, the FDA issued 2024 guidance urging manufacturers to switch to single-dose, child-resistant sachets. Within a year, calls about pediatric charcoal exposure dropped by 30%. Still, many pharmacy chains now keep bulk containers, anything over 250 grams, behind the counter, requiring a pharmacist to hand them over. For those who rely on charcoal for large-scale or long-term preparedness, these size limits and packaging changes make it harder to stockpile in bulk. Phenazopyridine, known to many as azo, is another survival kit essential, especially for anyone preparing for urinary tract infections in austere conditions. It provides rapid pain relief, but its safety profile has come under new scrutiny. In 2022, the FDA linked prolonged use to acute kidney injury, prompting a mandate for bold, 2-day use warnings on every package. State-level pilots in Washington and Colorado now limit purchases to just 2 days' supply at a time, with sales moved behind the pharmacy counter. Data from the FDA Adverse Event Reporting System logged nearly 1,850 reports of renal injury tied to phenazopyridine between 2020 and 2023, with a small but real risk of fatal outcomes. Nephrologists warn that repeated or extended use, especially without medical supervision, can lead to permanent kidney damage. For preppers, these new restrictions mean that even a familiar pain reliever could soon require a pharmacist's intervention, or in some states, a prescription, putting one more barrier between the survivalist and a once routine shelf item. Ephedrine, once a staple alongside cold remedies, now faces a tightening grip after the FDA banned all ephedra-based supplements in 2020, citing hundreds of heart attacks and strokes, especially among athletes and people with high blood pressure. Pharmaceutical-grade ephedrine remains available in some states, but not without new hurdles. In April 2024, the DEA mandated real-time tracking for any shipment over 100 grams through the National Precursor Log Exchange. Pharmacies must log every bulk transfer electronically, and even small retail packs are moving behind the counter and require pharmacist approval. These measures target both diversion, since ephedrine remains a meth precursor, and a steady stream of adverse cardiovascular events. The FDA reporting system logged over 3,000 heart-related incidents from 2021 to 2023, including arrhythmias and acute hypertension. For those relying on over-the-counter ephedrine as an asthma backup, the path is narrowing, with prescription-only access looming. Meanwhile, povidone iodine, long trusted for wound care and water purification, is under new scrutiny from pediatric endocrinologists. A 2020 American Thyroid Association review found infants exposed to 10% povidone iodine solutions faced measurable thyroid suppression. In May 2024, the FDA proposed capping all consumer povidone iodine at 5% concentration or less, citing studies that show lower strengths are just as effective for skin antisepsis, while sharply reducing the risk of iodine-induced hypothyroidism in newborns. Manufacturers have begun adding child-proof caps and warning labels. Bulk bottles of high-strength betadine may soon be pharmacy-only, with 10% solutions restricted to professional use. These changes reveal how regulatory reach now extends from classic abuse risks to long-term safety signals, reshaping what can be kept in a home survival kit. Aspirin has long been a mainstay in survival kits, valued for pain relief, fever reduction, and its role as an emergency antiplatelet. In 2023, the Food and Drug Administration required a new warning label for all low-dose aspirin products, highlighting the risk of serious gastrointestinal bleeding. This decision followed the ASPRI trial, which found that healthy adults over 70 taking daily low-dose aspirin saw no reduction in heart attacks or strokes, but did experience a measurable increase in major bleeding events. The American Heart Association estimates around 150,000 aspirin-related gastrointestinal bleeds each year in the United States. For preppers, this means a familiar and trusted tool now comes with a sharper caution. Manufacturers responded in 2024 by launching coated, gastro-friendly tablets aiming to reduce stomach irritation. The cardiology community supports these changes, pointing to the need for clearer guidance rather than outright restriction. Unlike other survival medicines, aspirin's tighter labeling and reformulation reflect a pure response to clinical evidence, not abuse or diversion. The result? Access remains broad, but the risks are now front and center. Kratom's legal status now hangs in the balance, as federal agencies weigh a decisive move. The DEA's 2021 scheduling notice and the FDA's ongoing toxicity warnings have fueled a 5-state wave of outright bans, with Alabama, Arkansas, Indiana, Tennessee, and Wisconsin all prohibiting kratom sales. Meanwhile, the FDA's November 2025 draft guidance recommends a strict 2-gram daily dosage cap, citing over 2,600 adverse events, including 62 deaths, logged since 2020. The American Kratom Association and grassroots advocates have poured millions into lobbying efforts, but policy momentum has shifted. Congressional research now places the odds of a federal scheduling or behind-the-counter rule at 60% by the end of 2026. If the DEA moves forward, kratom could join a hypothetical SNAP reclassification. A single federal action could push not just kratom, but multiple high-risk survival meds behind the pharmacy counter overnight. For anyone relying on these items for pain, infection, or emergency care, the window to stock up could close without warning. The regulatory fight is no longer theoretical. It is a live, urgent question of access versus control. Every regulatory shift redraws the line between preparedness and access. As FDA and DEA reviews accelerate through 2025, medicines once considered staples may soon require identification, logs, or prescriptions. For those relying on self-reliance, the ability to adapt and act before the rules change has never mattered more. Share your thoughts below.